Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. My name is Matthew, and today we're doing another figure comparison video, and it's really got to that point, hasn't it? Um, Basically, if you guys haven't realized, I am doing these goofy little figure comparisons just because I thought it would be more funny just to see, like, the difference between a higher quality figure versus a lower quality figure. But with that being said, let's introduce today's not combatants, but again, we're doing general figure style comparisons, no like point based. We're just comparing things here. So in this right here, we have the HIYA Toys Heat Ray Godzilla from 2021. I've said that like who knows how many times at this point. And we also have the Playmates Battle Roar Godzilla from the MonsterVerse line, specifically the Godzilla vs. Kong. Um, and again, we have 7 categories: sculpt and paint, articulation, size, accessories, price, availability, and packaging. I'll also be addressing build quality because there is a major difference between the two. So let's go ahead and talk about what's here. So I think the most noticeable part is how they fare as far as the heads are concerned. The HIYA Toys standard mold features it in a basic looking forward stance and has amazing sculpt and paint applications on it that just overall really enhance the figure's overall look, especially with the blue spray around its eyes, mouth, neck, and the back of the head. And also features a lot of really well cracks and crevices on it. And my only gripe is that the gills are not painted and the neck just is painted too thickly. It almost looks like nail polish. The Playmates Battle Roar, on the other hand, has very, very basically applied paint on the teeth and eyes, as you can see there. All right, I guess, kind of like sculpted details for the head and neck, and it eventually transitions into the blue spines, which we'll talk about later, but also mildly features the infamous dry brushing, which I do so despise on this figure, but also features a screw hole, actually no, 2 screw holes right at the bottom of the neck. So, and also as far as the mouth is concerned, nothing is really in there aside from the teeth and the pink slab of a tongue. And the eyes are also kind of mismatched a little bit. Here it's a little bit more towards the back. Here it's a little bit more towards the center, but a little bit downward. So Playmates has never been the best when it comes to consistency. I saw a regular one. Actually, no, I think it was the Heat Ray Godzilla from the basic Monsters line with the battle damage that had its eye all the way up here. That's not really good. Moving on down here to the waist and the arms, we can definitely see that the arms here are a lot, what you would say, better. Again, we're not trying to compare which one's better, but they're really well detailed, and they capture the movie's design and all the sculpted details with it very, very well. And the dry brushing and linear details really bring it out, and especially kind of like the mild wash they have up on the side of the figure. It's really well done. And I gotta hand it to HIYA. It looks something straight out of the movie, which you know when it's something straight out of the film, you know you're doing it right. My only gripe with the HIYA is that again, the stomach lining, it just doesn't transition well into the arms and kind of makes it look like a vest because there's not enough blue to really like give the illusion that it's a spray. Again, it just looks like a vest. Which, I mean, hey, if Godzilla's wearing clothes now, I mean, he's been, what, nude for like over 70 years? About time the big guy put some pants on. But, like, seriously? I definitely think that this could have been at least tightened up more. It definitely screams that these were separate parts. They sprayed this blue, but didn't really consider how it would transition over. And that's how it looks now. Although, again, what blue is here is absolutely phenomenal. And I gotta give bonus points to HIYA where it is due. Because honestly, again, I'll keep saying this, where there is not mistakes, there is perfection. And this perfection goes a long way. Look at all that like dry brushing and detailing and spray on there, and it's washed in beautifully, especially in Godzilla's like what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4. That's an 8 pack. That's an 8 pack. I've already known that, but like I was trying to recount. But on the Playmates, on the other hand, it's a lot, again, kind of similar to the head. Not just kind of, but really similar to the head, where it's more simplified. It's got the same detail, but it doesn't have the same level of detail. It's got the same type of bumps and crevices you'd see, and it's also got the same details on the sides. But unlike the HIYA, it's made of a different material, and the dry brushing that's kind of so and so, it's not even really dry brushing. It just feels like more caked on paint. And especially because, like, here you got like this big speaker that we'll talk about in a sec. Also, this big battery compartment on its crotch. Like, it definitely leaves a bit of the details out. But then again, you could say it's a kid's toy, but creations were also kids' toys. And those things had beautiful sculpting paint apps. Where did we fall as a society? Anyway, the claws are also painted pretty basically, kind of just standard dry brushing. Although the hands are very well dry brushed. Like, look at those claws; those are really well done. But I mean, as in really well done, I mean for Playmate standards. But at the end of the day, I think it's kind of clear where these two would fall. Next, let's talk about the legs. And again, HIYA comes in and really shows what they can do here. There's not any blue on the legs, which I definitely think is a bit of a disappointment, especially the fact that in the main atomic breath scene, he's literally shooting downward and his entire body was practically glowing blue. So a little bit of blue dry brushing definitely goes a little long way. And I think that's something that even the NECA has shown that they can actually beat HIYA in. But what this is here is that the dry brushing and sculpting are magnificent. They really show, again, the amount of detailing that HIYA was worth putting into their figures. The amount of dry brushing on this thing, again, brings out more of that finer detail that you don't even get to see had this thing been made of, like, glossy plastic. And even the claws down here are painted really well. It's kind of hard to see, but it's there. And once you actually see it, you'll definitely recognize it. And it's in a standard kind of like to the side pose, which again, not bad. And plus, it's really well done. While the Playmates, on the other hand, also features kind of like the same type of detailing they have, but again, not the same level. But it kind of accommodates it for some mild dry brushing throughout the body and features some more prominent painted toenails. Which, that being said, again, it's not on the same level. It's abundantly clear that, they keep reusing stuff from the Heat Ray Godzilla, and it's kind of biting them into the butt a little bit, especially when it comes to the proportions, the stance of the leg, considering the fact that one leg is bent backward and the other one is a bit forward, as if it's a neutral position. So why they keep doing that with their Godzillas but not their Kongs, I have no idea. Next, we're going to take a look at the spines. And do I even need to say anything? I know it's not a I know it's not a versus anymore, but you can obviously tell just how beautiful these HIYA ones are. They're made of pretty good material too. It is mildly bendy, but it's not like rubber bendy like this. It's very much not intended to bend. But honestly, I know this is going to sound really weird, but if Godzilla's spines were made of a real material and we could find a real material like it would probably be this. So in terms of like material accuracy, it could be those fins. And the fact that they're painted really brightly at the base, but kind of fade out towards the middle and then the tips, really just bring out that extra sense of depth that you'd see in the movie, and the HIYA really does it really well. However, Playmates also opts to go for a much more different approach. Much like the Heat Ray Godzilla, this thing also uses translucent plastic for the spines. And even though that, again, This is like what, my 15th time taking a look at both figures. I still say that the Battle Roar spines absolutely suck. The reason being, and I'm going to pull out the other, I'm going to pull out the Heat Ray Godzilla just for this comparison, is that the Heat Ray Godzilla, let's move the HIYA out of the way, is that the Heat Ray Godzilla spines actually look what you would see in the movie. They are actually pretty pointy and not softened out. This is sad. Like, this is dinky. Like, went from this point to this point. Like, maybe you could say it's to caution, like, to, because of parenting and kids, but again, they're selling these on the same shelf as these, so. Also, it is worth noting that it also does the same thing with the spines here, where it actually has a gap of the black and then it transitions to the blue, and then they kind of just give up midway and then just kind of leave the rest of the tail just completely black, which in my opinion, you gotta go the extra route. I mean, even down to the tail, which will actually just transition over to the tail. Both of them feature unique looking tails, with the Playmates featuring a much more different posed tail with it curving up like an S, and featuring that very cool looking spray, although I wish there was a bit more of a transition there rather than just light blue to dark translucent plastic, while the HIYA has definitely got more of a unique looking kind of gradient and really seeping in through the cracks kind of color, and honestly just looks really well done. And it even kind of goes off to the side where it dry brushes back into the regular skin color and then just kind of tapes off into the bottom of the tail, where again it kind of looks more sandy and it kind of makes sense. And one last minute to really like take a talk about build quality. This thing is actually built from a pretty good art plastic. And it's kind of like a you get what you pay for type thing. This feels very, very good. And even though it's really sharp, I mean, hey, you got to man up to play with these things. This feels very cheap, very brittle. And honestly, again, I know it's a kid's toy, but whatever happened to vinyl figures, huh? So overall, let's really narrow this down. It's not a versus, so no one's winning or losing any points. That being said, HIYA has definitely got a really great presentation with its combination of sculpt, paint, build quality, and overall consistency. With only a few flaws I personally find being in the chest and neck. That's relatively it. While the Playmate, it's a take it or leave it kind of deal. You know, you either like it for what it is or you hate it for what it is as far as sculpt and paint goes. So that's the sculpt and paint section. Next up, we've got Posability. So I'm pretty sure you already know how this game is gonna play, but for those that don't know for whatever reason, despite the fact that this is again like the bajillion time I'm looking at these figures, well, let's go over it. So first of all, the jaw on the HIYA is on a hinge, and it can close up, open about that far, and the tongue inside it also has a hinge. Now, do keep note that whenever you have it closed like this, and then you go to close the jaw, it will sink back up to the roof of the mouth. I mean, it's kind of obvious considering the fact that, you know, they can't just sculpt it through. It's just going to look weird whenever he opens up his mouth. So, yeah. But just to let y'all know, and for the head, there's a ball joint right where the head meets the neck. And it has a fair amount of range for what it is. You can kind of go side to side, up and down, forward and back. You know, all that good stuff. It can also kind of rotate. It's not really meant to rotate, but it's got a decent amount of rotation. But you might think that, oh, there's multiple neck segments. Not true. Basically, what's happening here is, if you're familiar with the neck of Godzilla in 1994, that figure had a sleeve that had one big rod that went from the base of the neck all the way to the top of the head, and the neck piece was actually just a free floating piece. That's the same thing going on here, only difference is that there is multiple neck pieces. So this can accommodate for much more fluid of motion. See how the gills move in unison? That is beautiful engineering, my friends. Back then though, they actually had like a hinge at the head, which kind of allowed it to do like the same thing, kind of looking up, but there was like a big gap there. But now it's fixed up for this version, which I'm actually really happy they did. Here at the shoulders, we're gonna take a look here. The shoulders here we can move up and down, forward and back. It's very, very well done, honestly. And even if it kind of gets a little less mileage than one would expect, it's got a fair amount of range. You can get a good rotation out of it, even though mine's quite still stiff. Oh, there we go. A bit more freed up now that we do that. But it can still go up and down, forward and back. Elbow can still bend in about, let's go ahead and say that far out. Bend about that far in, and it can also rotate. The wrist can also bend and swivel. It's on a ball joint, so you get a fair amount of range there. No swivel hinge, surprisingly, on the wrist, like they would do with the NECA ones back in the day. And I feel old saying back in the day. Also, it has a very well done waist joint. Not like the best range, because at a certain point you get like a gap there. It is noticeable, but then you can just kind of close back up. Godzilla's not one to use his waist anyway. I say that, and then they make Godzilla skinny in the next movie. It's just why? Why, bro? And then, you get like a fair rotation, side to side, forward and back. It's there. It's just not as prevalent. Coming on down to the thighs, we got a bit of a fair amount of movement here. We can spread out to the side, kind of close in. It's similar engineering to that of the monster arts, but takes inspiration from the NECA as far as like how the legs are really executed, as they can actually roll inside the joint, but also at the same time kind of go out of it, which is something that NECA and monster arts can both do as well as can also rotate a fair amount in there, so you kind of get him to kind of cave in a little bit, do that. The knee is on a double joint. Oh, crud. A little bit of a double joint right there. Very decent range. Can also not really swivel. I think it's just a hinge. But the ball joint at the foot is really, really well done, honestly. Kind of got a very tight swivel, but the swivel is there. You just gotta know where to look for it. And of course, moving you along the way, the tail. 9 segments of ball joints, not the most range in the world, but again, for what articulation is here, is really well solid. I feel like it could have looked up a little more, because this is as up as it goes. But but other things like looking down, going to the sides, you get a really good amount of range. So as far as the range of articulation goes on this Godzilla, it's honestly really good. Next, let's start off with the Playmates Battle Roar, which I can't take this thing seriously when it all just looks like is some deranged penguin looking up to the sky and seeing that one National Geographic helicopter recording their next documentary on the next one about global warming, I guess. So yeah, there's no articulation in the head whatsoever. There's no head swivel, thankfully this time, because I don't want to be clickbait into thinking, oh, a big swivel. Psst. It's a square peg. There's a movable jaw, but it doesn't really, it's spring loaded. I was about to say spring locked. If you know, you know. But no, it's not meant to articulate, but we'll get back to that in another category. The arms are on swivels, and we'll be able to rotate all the way around, which I do so like. And maybe not so much this arm, but it can get about of range. The legs here, this one can kick up about that far up, that far back. And this one can kick much more higher up and a bit more further back. And can swivel at the feet. Nicely done. And can actually rotate and articulate this whole big ball joint of a tail. Like, if you actually take a look at what it actually looks... Whoa. Almost hitting everything. Like camera stuff. This is one big ball and socket. Like, Also, this straight up looks like a pipe. Yeah, it looks like a pipe. Um, so you can get a really good amount of range. Um, you know, getting all that side to side, forward and back, up and down. It's kind of like a joystick in a way. But there's nothing else from here to here. It's just all one solid piece of rubber. So really, the Battle Royal Godzilla was never about posability, but let's go ahead and end off this category. I can definitively say that the HIYA Godzilla definitely has a lot of good posability, reminiscent of that of the NECA and Monster Arts of previous years. And even then, it's even just gotten to the point where it's so incredible what they were able to do for only $50. $50 gets you this. Do I honestly think that, that Monster Arts should look at what HIYA is doing? Yes. Because I'm about to drop something, and I know this has nothing to do with Monster Arts. Monster Arts should have ended their line, in my opinion, because what are they releasing nowadays? Just repaints and re-releases nobody asked for of worse quality? Minus Goji looked absolute garbage. The Final Wars figures looked mediocre. And I mean, their Showa Godzilla looked cool. The 72 one. But that's really about it. 71, 72, and whatever. But with that being said, what is here is really good. The HIYA is really well done. The Playmates does what it can do. I definitely think, again, it should have not been in a pre-done pose. Because, like, come on, dude. It's... Just give us, like, a Godzilla figure that roars that's not in this goofy position. Make it like this. It's like a button that seeps into the skin and then you press it and it roars. I feel like that would have been a lot better. But yeah, that wraps up the articulation section. Next, let's go over size. And essentially, they're the exact same size. Sure, the Battle Roar one is looking extendedly up, and it's literally just a slightly enlarged version of the Battle Roar, the Battle Damage Godzilla Heat Ray. But again, they are fundamentally the same height. However, I will say the proportions on the HIYA are much better than that of the Playmates. Because unlike the Playmates, the HIYA doesn't have an overly elongated neck. This just looks so plump and cheesy. Like, it looks so weird to me. And especially with how thick and massive of a tail this is, like, you grab it and maybe this is what it was made for. You grab and you like smash things around and you press the button with it. Maybe that was what it was intended for, but proportionally speaking, I think the HIYA and the Playmates, that's basically how big they are to each other as far as standard goes. Although I will say that Playmates kind of screwed themselves in the butt. That sounds really weird to say. Screw themselves in the butt. Oh boy, that comment. Basically, they released two other Battle Roar figures, the Kong and the Mechagodzilla, that would later come down the line, and they do not scale with each other. The Mechagodzilla is a bit too big, the Kong is about the right scale, and this is too small. The only reason why it's like the same height is because it's looking up. Had this thing been pointed downward, it would have been much smaller than it already is. And honestly, I think that's just more bad design part on Playmates rather than actual, like, mixing in the scale. So Playmates really needs to tighten that up for future releases. Hopefully the GXK ones are better. Next, we're going to take a look at accessories, which they both have something. And I know people are going to say, oh, the Battle Roar doesn't come with anything. Oh, it does. But the HIYA actually does come with a very long atomic breath part, which is taller than, actually no, just as tall as the figure itself. And a neck piece, like that. Has the neck like that. And the head that looks up like that. And funny enough is that when you remove the neck piece, it kind of does the same thing as this, except what this actually does better than that of the Playmates version is that it's not as chunky, or it doesn't look as goofy, to me at least. But basically you take off all those, put this on here, and then you pop into the ball joint, and then you just plug this in either this way, preferably this way, or this way. Now that being said, let's talk about what the Playmates one comes with. I'm not going to attach the HIYA ones on video because I've already done that, and it's a huge pain in the butt to actually get those things off and on. But let's take a look at the Playmates. The Playmates actually does feature, well again, a speaker, a battery compartment, and a button. No, the fins do not light up, sadly. I wish they did, but if you want to give it a press, you actually get, if you remember me saying the jaw was spring-loaded, that's because it can roar. It's not as loud as I remember it being. So yeah, it alternates between those two roars. The King of the Monsters roar and the 2014 roar. So that being said, that's basically what they both come with. One gimmick, one kind of more accessory based. Because accessories and gimmicks are kind of like identical things. So that's basically what they come with. Price. At retail, this was about $50. This was about $15. Not 50, 15. So off the bat, you can definitely see a huge price difference, which probably explains the quality. But alas, definitely the cheaper option. But then again, you're getting your money's worth on both. Next is availability. And let's go ahead and just say this right out of the gate. The Playmates can be found at pretty much any major retailer. As recently, their GVK figures, along with their GXK figures, have been getting restocked, thanks to the new movie and the found success on the GVK figures. And the HIYA figure can only really be found at like collectible stores, not any major retailers, but can be found at those type of retailers. And also Big Bad Toy Store too, which I don't think they have the Playmates Godzillas that much anymore. But with that being said, I think there's more of a probable chance you'll be able to find him, and as opposed to vice versa. And the last category we're going to take a look at is boxes. Now, I've already done box showcase episodes on both of these figures' boxes, or at least identical boxes. And what I will say is that presentation-wise, he has the better box, but as far as like the collector is concerned, he's definitely going to have the more collector-friendly box. I know we're comparing now, but when we're talking about two figures, we're kind of comparing them, so it's not a point-based thing, but I'm just telling you what they have over the other in some instances. This has a better box as far as the collector's actually concerned, because you can actually see through it. This is a pure closed-off box, so you're not able to see, oh, does my HIYA Godzilla have a paint scuff on him? Extra paint, bleeding paint, missing parts? You can actually see with the Battle Roar Godzilla. Unfortunately, they only had one stock, so I had to go with this one. Very, very crummy. But, I mean, it's alright. But, overall, that kind of wraps up this whole thing. I think when you really get it down, there's no way to really say that one is better than the other, specifically speaking, because they're even. Because they're not. One's a $15 figure meant for kids. The other one is a $50 collectible made for adults. With that being said, oh boy, do we have a good problem. I definitely think that, of course, your mileage may vary on both. Also, I just realized how much more skinny this one is in comparison to the HIYA. Wow, was that a huge difference. But then again, he's got like one meaty looking tile. Look at that. But that being said, I think as far as personal recommendations go and my overall ratings, I would give this one a 9 out of 10. And this one, I'm going to say like a 6.5. It's not the best purchase I've made ever, but it's a novelty. It's something that exists. And it does that. Not thinking about it, I might want to put this speaker box, put in this guy if I can. That'd be a really cool idea. But with that being said, I definitely think both figures do their job good to a T. This one does it near perfectly. This one I feel like could have tightened it up with some better dry brushing. But at the end of the day, that's ultimately your opinion. Ooh, I'm getting tired. So I'm just gonna wrap this up here. If you like kids' toys, go with this one. If you like, oh boy, I was about to say adult toys. I'm not even trying to make a dirty joke. Like, it's just my speech thing. If you like adult collectibles, then go with this one. But with that being said, thank you guys for watching this video. If you guys liked it, definitely subscribe to the channel. Believe in Jesus, accept Him as Lord and Savior today, spread the gospel, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out, everyone. God bless.